Hey, welcome. So this is the Tado smart heating solution for floor heating. I've had it for a year and think would be an appropriate time to give some of my experiences on if a system like this makes sense to buy. If we just start out with the money side here, a starter kit costs around 200 euros, probably, that would be probably a little more in dollars if you are from the States. And then an additional thermostat costs 120 euros, and then probably, that would be roughly translate to 150 US dollars, something like that. The starter kits consist of a thermostat and a gateway that you use to connect the thermostats to your internet so they can be configured by apps and over the internet and all of that stuff. Similar to what you do with Philips Hue and similar solutions. So why have I even bought a system like that? I live in a fairly new house that is very well insulated and have floor heating. And floor heating have the disadvantage that even though the room might be warm, the floors can be cold because there's a delay. And when you turn on the heat circulation in the floor heating, to that sort of heat is actually pushed up into the air and then heats up the room. So the usual complaint in my household has been that in the early mornings the floors are too cold in the rooms where I do not have carpets. So that would typically be your kitchen and your bathrooms, which would be the problem areas, if you will. So what you get with a solution like this is a more, let's say, intelligent way of controlling your thermostats, because the thermostats that I had with my house was just your basic run-of-the-mill stupid thermostat where you can define a value, and if the temperature in the room is below that preset value, the thermostat will then ask the floor heating system to turn on in that room, and once the temperature is then hit again, it turns that off, and it keeps doing that. But the problem is, again, back to the delay of floor heating, is that you will typically then have an additional heat into that room once the thermostat detects that the threshold has been hit, because you cannot just stop on a dime with the floor heating system. It's like stopping a super tanker boat on the ocean. It still goes additional 100 meters if we're talking about the boat, and the same parallel could be drawn for stuff like this, is that the floor heating will continue to emit heat for several, probably hours after it has been turned on, because there is quite a big delay between the actual stop and when it's finished with emitting heat. So a system like this has intelligence built into it, since it's not just a dumb thermostat but has a software back into it. So this system will learn over time how much time your rooms will need to, let's say, be increased by 1 degree. And that it uses to, when you say to the system at 7 o'clock, I want the room to be 22 degrees, if that's what you want. And it can notify, it sort of detects that it's at 21 degrees currently. It will know that, okay, I will need, let's say, 4 hours to increase that 1 degree. So I need to start out at 3 a.m. In order to hit 22 degrees at 7 a.m. So that's the sort of intelligence you get with this type of solution. So you can keep the degrees low in the hours that you don't, but it will still figure out when it needs to start in order to hit the defined temperature according to the scheme that you define in the solution. Let's just quickly talk about the install process for this. So you set up your gateway with your internet, and then you sort of connect the thermostats by replacing the existing thermostats you have. You do that by telling the system what type of system you have already, and you will get an email from Tado with the specific instructions from your system on how to replace the thermostats. So I can show you mine, and I will in like a couple of seconds here. But just note that it could be different from your system again, because there are no two heating systems that are alike. So this is just to give you a quick insight into the steps that are needed. But again, it could be slightly different in your system. So just see it as inspiration. Then it's not. It might not be the exact same steps that you need to run through.
This is the Tado web interface that you use to define the schedules that you set for your thermostats in your rooms. There's also an app that can do pretty much the same as the website. There are like a couple of small differences, but pretty much you can do the same on both platforms. So if we just jump into, this is my kitchen, and here we can see what the temperature that it's currently set to, and what the measurements of the room is currently, both for the temperature and the humidity. If we then go into the schedule, you have the option sort of to set if you want the schedule to be same all days, or if you want a different schedule for weekdays and weekends. So I've played around a little bit with that during the last year and have come up with that pretty much I don't need a different schedule for weekends. There was sort of an idea that yeah, since we were home more, that we needed a different schedule, but really that's controlled more by the whole away mode, where you here set what temperature is like the lowest that the system will allow, should it detect that you are not within the house. And here you also have the option to set if the system should preheat the room if it detects that you are on your way home. I have a daughter that is in a school very close to our house, so that feature sort of wouldn't make sense for us. And also again back to the delay of floor heating, that is pretty much doesn't make a lot of sense. So back to the schedule, where you can add these time blocks. Just to show you, if I wanted an additional block here, I could say, from 7 to 14:30, I wanted this temperature, and I can just fiddle around with that. You also have the option to sort of to override that, even though the system detects that you are not at home, that you will still keep a given temperature. if should you need to. That could be, for instance, if there are people in the household at that time that will not have the app and thus will not be detected. Let me just delete this time lock again. You also have the option to set this early start. So this is back to the whole learning system that the system will try to figure out. If I want the temperature to be at 22 degrees at 8 a.m., I need to start out at this point in order for the temperature to be reached at that given time. So that's really what there is to it. It's very easy to set up these schedules, and you can also change them from within the app if you want. You can also have the system evaluate the air comfort within your house, where it has like these dashboards that you can look at to see if, and it looks, that I'm doing pretty good here in my house on both keeping the temperatures at a fair level, but that the humidity is also, within the recommended range. One thing I just wanted to show you within the settings menu is that for a given thermostat, you can define what happens if someone uses the manual buttons on the device to change the temperature. So you have a few options here. So you can say that the manual temperature will stay there until the next time change within the schedule, or you could actually, if you want to make sure sort of that no one will actually uh, have the ability to override the scheme that you want to run, you can just set, that will only last for 1 minute. So, and then it will go back to the defined temperature. You also have the option to set an offset temperature of plus and minus should the thermostat sit in a place where it doesn't measure, let's say, correctly for the room as such. So this is the app, and pretty much again shows you what you could do within from the website, that you can look at your different zones. But you have one thing here, you have the statistics icon up in the top right corner, where you have the ability to select a day that you want to see how your system has run, and here you can see the temperature at a given point in time, and also if the system was active or not active in demanding heat to hit the temperature that you have defined within the schedule. You also have the option to see the outside temperature from your house and the humidity within the room. You have this energy savings area within the app that you don't see on the website. Don't put too much emphasis into this. This is pretty much PR stuff, but it does give you some interesting statistics.
So I found the install process fairly easy, especially after the first one. Doing the three others that I did was fairly easy. I haven't actually installed the thermostats in all of my rooms. I've installed it in the rooms that I do not have floor carpet in. Because those were sort of the trouble rooms. So you don't need to go all out here. You can start out with one room like I did, and then once I figured out that seemed to work, I bought the 3 additional thermostats and extended the system. Let's talk about the software that you use to configure this. You have the option to go with sort of a free version where you don't pay any subscription. And then you have either a monthly or yearly subscription to get some additional features. The features that you get are that the thermostats can detect if a window has been opened, supposedly in the room that they are sitting in, and in that case they will sort of suspend increasing the heat if it detects that the temperature is decreasing, which makes sense. So if you're just airing out a room, that will not make the thermostat say, oh, it's getting too cold, I'll need to increase the heat. So it sort of pauses itself for a short period, and then it resumes, and again will then increase the heat if it's needed. But again, if it's just temporarily that the temperature is decreasing, it won't do anything. So that's kind of clever. The other thing is that it can detect, because you install an app on your phone, if you are away from your home, and in that case it can lower the temperature of the house. You can actually do this without paying the monthly fee or yearly, but then you will need manually, every time that the app detects that you have left your home, to verify that you are indeed out of the house and it's okay to lower the temperature. Kind of silly, but again, I'm okay with paying a monthly fee. I mean, we are talking around, let's say, yeah, it's about $50-60 per year for this system, and I'm fine with that because if Tado makes money on maintaining this system, that also sort of has an incentive for them not to just discard it. And if they actually did that, those units here would be rendered useless. So again, I'm fine with the. I'm usually not a big fan of monthly subscriptions, but in this case, it sort of makes sense because I am constantly using their backend to run my schedules and stuff like that. So fair is fair. But again, you can consider not going with the yearly plan because right now, for me in Denmark, it actually makes sense for me to run the monthly plan, even though if I used it for the entire year, it would be more. But for me, there are enough months in the year that I don't have my heating system turned on, that it actually saves me a little bit of money compared to the yearly plan. So you can figure that out once you have the system and how many months you run your heating system per year, if you want to go with the yearly plan or the monthly plan. Another thing we could talk about is the integration with smart home assistants. So I have the Amazon Alexa system and that works well with one minor kink. So the way it is that you put these units into the room setup that you have within the Amazon Alexa system. But the problem is if you, like me, also have smart bulbs, if you have these in the same room, the Amazon Alexa system will actually turn off the thermostat when you ask it to turn off the lights in the room. So you need to move these into a separate room within the Alexa system in order for them not to be turned off when you turn off the lights. It seems silly, but it works out in practice and isn't that big of a problem. So if I wanted to ask for the temperature in the kitchen, I would just ask Alexa, what is the temperature in the kitchen thermostat room? So the small thermostat addition will just make sure that it doesn't sort of conflict with my light system. But I will say this, I don't really use the voice assistant part for that part. I use my voice assistants for a lot of things, but the thermostats really, I run them on the schedule, and that's really what's my setup has been in all this. I don't really manually change them because now that these can run on the schedule, I don't need to go and manually define the temperatures too much. So what's my recommendation on this system? Is it worth the money? I would say yes, but not in the sense that it will save you money. It might save you some money, but I don't think that that saving is bigger than the investment that you're doing. So that part I don't really buy into, but I do buy into that you will get a better climate in your house and a more controlled climate that is to your likings, because the old thermostats that I had were simply too simple in the way that they worked. So this works better for us. I would lie if I told you it had got rid of all discussions about heating in this household, but it has definitely put a lid on the most the most hot ones. So yes, this is something that I think you could make a lot of use of. Again, this is the floor heating system. I think if you have radiators in your house, you will actually have even more benefit from replacing your old thermostat with the one from Tado, because radiators are more direct heating source and can quickly heat up a room than you can with floor heating. Thus, you can get a more benefit out from the whole turning down the heating should you be away from your house. That effect is not as big unless you are away for days in the floor heating scenario. I hope you find this useful. If you have any comments to stuff I haven't covered, please leave a comment and I'll try to answer it as quickly as possible. Or else I'll just see you in another video. See you.